Welcome back to another edition of the Educational AD Podcast. We couldn't do these without the incredible support of our sponsors, and we want to start by saying thank you to all of them. First, thanks to our diamond sponsor, Varsity Brands, including BSN, Varsity Spirit, and Herff Jones. Varsity Brands, elevating student experiences in sport, spirit, and achievement. We also want to say thank you to our platinum sponsors, including Ephesus Lighting, innovating a brighter future at every level. Gilman Gear, always a step ahead. Camp Mobile, where leaders communicate better. Hometown Ticketing, simple and easy online ticketing. Vital Signs, bring student achievements to life. And Gipper, sports graphics made incredibly simple. Thanks to all of our great sponsors. Welcome back, everyone, to another edition of the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest today is Tim Leeseburg. Tim is a certified athletic administrator, and he's the athletic director at Plant City High School down in Southwest Florida. He's also a member of our FIAAA Board of Directors. Tim, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and I want to say this is exciting times, and want to thank you for letting me be a part of this podcast.
Oh, absolutely. Well, as you know, it's a busy time for ADs, so we're going to jump right into it. We always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, where you went to school and college, and maybe how your love of sports, led to that first teaching and coaching job.
Absolutely. So I originally grew up just outside of Flint, Michigan. And, my love of sports started at a young age. I'm the youngest of four, and my brothers both played football, and my oldest brother played baseball. So there was always this calling to want to be like them. I looked up to them a lot when I was, and still do, when I was much younger. But wanting to be like them and compete, and so started playing football and baseball. 5 years old. My parents were the coach of my teams growing up through Little League. In our hometown, football was kind of the sport to play. And so a lot of us were pushed towards that and grew to love it and really enjoyed it. My oldest brother was on a team that started a winning streak at our high school, and luckily it didn't end while I was still in high school. They lost a regular season game about 2 years after I graduated. So it was fun, and went on to college at Central Michigan University. I did not play any sports there collegiately. I did play on some intramural teams, but got my double major in science and geography. Worked construction for a few years after I graduated, and had started working on a master's in science to come and be a teacher. When I met my wife, she wanted to move to Florida. So a week after we got married, we moved to Florida, and I had heard about Hillsborough's teaching program, where if you had a degree, you could teach, and you had 3 years to earn a teaching certificate. So that was my first guidings into teaching. I taught middle school science for 6 years. While I was doing that, I coached flag football and track and basketball at that middle school. I did end up coaching football at the neighboring high school, at Blake High School here in Hillsborough County. Was the business manager at our high school, which kind of gave me the sides of what I currently do at the high school level, but worked my way through and knew when I got into teaching that I wanted to go towards being an athletic director. It was always, I thought, a calling in there.
Well, that's quite a journey. I wasn't aware about the Michigan connection. How was that? I mean, going from Michigan to, let's face it, it's South Florida. That must have been a little bit of a transition.
It was a little bit of a shock. I'd only been to Florida once when she initially said that she wanted to move down here, and she had moved down before we got married and started working a job. I was still working in Flint at the time. So I visited once just to see what it was like, but I've enjoyed it. I haven't always been in Michigan. So it's different. We get back a little bit to see the family. We try not to go in the winter because it's so much colder, but there's a lot more football down here than what I remember back home, and that seems to be a big thing. Baseball is really big down here, and growing up, we didn't have soccer in my high school, and 2 years after I started here at Plant City High School, our boys soccer team won the state championship. So being a part of that run after hiring our coach was a lot of fun, and you see the boys come back to the games and watch year after year. So it was eye-opening. It was a change of what I had been used to, but it's just a new experience each day with it.
Oh, we've got a pretty good soccer program at McClay. We're gonna have to get our teams together.
Absolutely.
I know you said Central Michigan, but Wolverines or Spartans?
Spartans. We're a house divided. I am a Spartan fan. My wife is a Wolverine fan, so that battle comes once a year.
I can relate 100%. My wife and I were both born and raised in Oregon, and
Okay.
I grew up a Duck fan. She grew up and was a Oregon State Division I athlete. So we have our Civil War each year. Hey, in our profession, we always talk about the importance of leadership and mentoring. And I'm curious, who were some of your mentors growing up? You mentioned your parents, of course, but the phrase I like to use is whose voice do you still hear in your head when you're talking to, your coaches or your kids or your teams?
There's so many. I mean, I still stay fairly close with my parents. I talk to them, at least once, twice a week, just to see how they're doing. If I have questions, they're always somebody I can turn to. But I do hear back quite a bit. My former high school coach, who's now coaching at Ferris State University in Michigan, he was the guy that he could get you to do whatever he wanted, and you would run through a brick wall for him, and he found a way to bring out the best and the most work out of you, and for you to tap into your potential. So I look back at and hear his voice quite a bit. Actually was able to run in with him right before this pandemic hit because he was recruiting one of our athletes. So it was a good reunion at that time. But then, throughout, in high school, I had a co-op job working for our athletic director. Wayne Wright, he was our head baseball coach and our athletic director at my high school. And so I had an opportunity to work with him, for a couple of years and kind of learn a little bit of it with what I could as being a student at the school. Obviously wasn't able to see the financial side of things and the, what went into the hiring process, but the game setup and the day-to-day organization of everything. So, those are just some different people, that from an early age on that I was able to, but, after coming in and working in the schools, there's just a couple here in Hillsborough County that I've really leaned on, Donnie Peak and Lannis Robinson, probably the two main ones. And still, if there's a question that I have, I can always easily reach out to them and they're willing to answer. So,
you mentioned, Lannis Robinson, for our listeners, in addition to being the president this year of the NIAAA, he's also the county AD for Hillsborough County down the Tampa area. I know that, he really promotes the professional development and the LTI courses for the ADs, not just in his county, but around the state. So, Tim, share kind of your journey with, the NIAAA and, your coursework, leading up to earning your CAA?
Absolutely. Right after I took the job here at Plant City, uh, Donnie Peak and I had talked a little bit about the national conference. He was explaining everything to me, and he had started taking some LTI courses and said, if it's something you can swing, you should consider it. And he's like, you're going to learn some different things through the courses. So that first year, we had the NIAAA conference in Orlando, and I was able to make it for the whole event, and took my first course there. I want to say it was 501 was the course I took. It was the law class, one of the law classes, and just at that point got hooked. And originally when I was in high school and college, I thought I was going to go to law school. So that first law class, the LTI course, kind of got me drawn into it more and more. And so I've taken, I think, all of the law classes that are offered there through the LTI, and I wanted to get more involved with it. In this past January, I was able to teach my first LTI course here in Orlando, and at a FIAAA board meeting that we had. But just a great opportunity. I enjoyed meeting new connections at the NIAAA or the FIAAA conference, and networking with people and learning more through the classes with the individuals that are teaching them, whether they're current ADs or retired ADs. There was always something new that you learn through it, and resources that you get that definitely help throughout the day-to-day operations of the job.
Well, and now that you've got that CAA as the Florida certification coordinator, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't encourage you to continue working towards that CMAA level. Right?
Absolutely. I'm in the middle of actually working on that. I think I've got 3 courses left to take. And then obviously the final presentation or project to present. So been working on that a little bit. I'm going to sign up for a couple classes for the conference in December, take them virtually. So.
All right, outstanding. Okay. Let's go and jump right in and talk about COVID. We've certainly seen a variety of responses across the country, from states, shutting down sports completely to some states moving them around, football moving to the spring and baseball to the fall, things like that. Even in our state of Florida, of course, we delayed for a month and then started back up. But as you know, there's some schools over on the other side of the state from you, Miami-Dade area, that are just now getting back on campus. Absolutely. So my question is, again, for our listeners, what's happening right now in the Tampa area, Hillsborough County, and what's happening at your school, Plant City, which, again, for our listeners, is outside of the Tampa area?
Absolutely. So you're right. We delayed a month getting started with everything, and our all of our fall sports are going at this point. We've had modified schedules to shorten the seasons a little bit with getting that late start. So instead of playing the 10 games, Hillsborough County is playing 8 games in county. Every school in the state of Florida, as you are aware, was opted into the state series, and they had a deadline to opt out. And my whole thought with that was, why opt out? If it's going to give our student athletes even one extra game, it doesn't matter how good they are at this point, give them that opportunity to play a game. Because I think back to this past spring when, baseball, softball, track had to shut down, and we had so many seniors that their last game were taken from them. They were in the middle. Our track team was at an event when everything got shut down on March 13th, and the announcement came across that due to COVID, they had to shut down immediately and send everybody home. I was on my way to that event, and it just started. And so it was eye-opening. with how quick things could change. Our students in school and out on the fields are wearing masks, to protect themselves and to protect others around them. Our athletes out on the field don't have to have the mask on, but if they're not actively engaged in the contest or in the activity, if they're standing on the sideline, they've got to have that mask on. Our coaches all have to have their mask on. It's just walking around, and we're pretty fortunate enough here that at Plant City, none of our student athletes or our students in general have opted out of the mask mandate here in the county. So we've been pretty fortunate. We've had a couple incidences in class where we've had to quarantine some students, just from whatever has happened. But we had one game that was canceled due to the other team being shut down. Lakeland High School was shut down their first two games, so we were their second one. We ended up picking up and replacing a game with Manatee High School. So we've been fortunate. We haven't lost any games, and I think the focus is to if we can play games, we're going to try and schedule as many as we can for our kids. It's for them. It's to give them the memories of what we can, while they're still here. It's changed. When we first started, it was 4 spectators for each player, each coach, each cheerleader, and each band member at football games. Volleyball, it was just the coaches and the players were able to give 4 spectators for each participant. So our numbers were down quite a bit. But this past week they did open it, so we're allowed to go 1,500 for football and 400 for volleyball. So we're going to see a little bit of a change there with our numbers. They're going to increase a little bit, not to 100% capacity, but we're looking forward to it. We've got a game tonight, which will be our first one with this 1,500 limit. Thankfully, we're not hosting, so I get to see how another school is going to handle it. But it's you just have to kind of roll with it and see where it goes, and listen to your parents. They have concerns, and it's staying optimistic about everything.
Let's go and talk about that a little bit. For your home events that you've had at the reduced capacity, how has the game management gone? You hear stories about this parent doesn't want to wear a mask, or just things like that. So how have your fans handled that? How's the game management been so far?
Well, it's been different. You spend your time more, say volleyball, they've got to wear a mask. And so you're spending your time walking through the crowd, reminding people to wear the mask. We have a announcement that we make several times throughout the contest, whether it's volleyball or football. Just a reminder, to keep themselves and everyone around them safe. That masks are required, and we have not kicked anybody out of a game. We've had to talk to them and just kind of reiterate the importance of wearing the mask, and it's for the safety of themselves and the student athletes. We want to keep them healthy so that we can play these games. And it's been fairly easy to this point. I think most of the parents in our community have been very supportive of it, because they want to come out and watch their kids or their grandkids play. So it's been better. Last night there were a few more people who were trying not to wear a mask, and as I walked through, I wasn't on duty last night, but one of our other administrators was, and there were seemed like a lot more conversations about keeping the mask on. So I think as we get further into this, people are not as accepting of wanting to wear the mask. I think they're getting over it, but the message that we just have to keep sending is, we're tracking in the right direction because we're doing it, but let's keep doing it so that we can get to a point where we won't need them, and we're just not there yet.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, everybody's in that same boat. Um, Tim, you've been at Plant City now for a few years. You're there, teacher and coach, and now as AD. What are some things that, looking at your program, what are some things that you feel that your coaches, your kids, so what are some things that you think that you do particularly well that, boy, we really, hit this one out of the park?
Um, I think our coaches have done a really good job with uh, promoting their programs, within our school and getting the number of kids out there to play and, talking with what they've done. Our flag football team, for instance, will have 80 girls try out. And, it's just a matter of, you know, they're getting the students in their classes and having conversations about, come on out, it'll be fun, think of the experiences. And um, I think our coaches really do a great job with that. We've been successful with various programs. Our softball team, you know, 3 district championships in a row, and regional finalists, state semifinalists, and um, our boys soccer I mentioned earlier won the state championship a few years back. Our baseball team won the state championship 2 years ago. It's they're building programs and getting the commitments from their players, and um, we've had some successful runs. Our Special Olympics team won the basketball state championship back in February, and just the excitement. And last night at our volleyball senior night, one of the questions was, what was your favorite moment from high school? And one of the players put that it was when our state championship Special Olympics team won the basketball, and just we were down by 2, and one of the players hit a 3-pointer at the buzzer to win, uh, and just it's the excitement of seeing that. It's not only being the athlete, but being the spectator and supporting your classmates. Um, so our coaches have come a long way and are working, towards a common goal of building respectful programs that kids want to be a part of. And I've been excited to be a part of it.
That's great to hear. As you know firsthand, great coaches, lead to great programs. Um, Talking about the program, I always ask our ADs, what's your favorite part of the job? And of course, they answer the kids, and it should be the kids. You don't care about kids, you shouldn't be in this business. But beyond the kids, what are some of your favorite aspects about being the athletic director at Plant City High School? What gets you excited about coming to work each day?
Well, I just love this community. They support our students, they support our school. We're pretty fortunate to have the local businesses that if there's a want or a need, that they're willing to step up and help out. That it's not the same thing every day. When I worked construction, you knew you were building a house or you were roofing a house or whatever it was. um, with this job, you come in, you have a plan in your mind, or you might have a to-do list, uh, but it's never the same at the end of the day, because something's come up with this teacher or that student or something here on the facility. So it's changing, and it's being able to adapt to that and uh, manage all of it and keep everyone happy through the whole process. And it's not easy. I'm sure all of you know that if you've been in this for any time, there's always something. But it's listening to the parents, having those conversations. And you're right. I think a lot of people are going to say it is about the kids and everything. Um, I really enjoy watching these students, play, but having the opportunity to sign those letters of intent and go on to play, and that's always fun talk with them when they come back. You know, we've had some number of recruits over the years go on and play at different levels of college, and it's been exciting.
Oh yeah, the signing ceremonies are always fun parts of the year. Well, Tim, this has been great. I've got a chance to get to know you the last couple of years with Board of Directors, but it's been great hearing your story. But we're not done yet. We always like to wrap up with what we call the Athletic Director's Toolbox. And we've already mentioned you're an experienced AD, but my challenge to you right now is you're going to be sending out a brand new athletic director on their very first job. But I'm only going to let you put 3 things in their toolbox. What 3 items are going to go in Tim Leeseburg's athletic director toolbox?
I think one of the first things is, you know, you're going to have to go in and listen. You know, you've got to listen to the coaches that you have on campus. You've got to listen to your administrators that you're working with, your teachers, your players, and your parents are probably the most important one. You know, you've got to make sure your parents are supportive of what you're doing. If they have concerns or questions, are you listening and addressing them? You know, it's not always easy. People want to try and give an answer right away, but it's being able to truly listen to what the questions are and try and find a resolve to each piece that is a win-win for both sides, whether it's the parent, the student, you know, the school. You know, you've got to make it a success story for everyone. Probably the second thing would be, you know, you've got to have a calendar. And if it's your phone that you've got where it pops up the reminders for you, or your computer, you've got to know when your events are and try to balance that schedule so you're not booking, you know, 2 events out on your football field or 2 events on your gym floor or in your auditorium. You know, you're not renting out to an outside organization if your art or your drama department has a play going on. You know, so it's being organized on that side with the calendars, and it's one calendar. It's not multiple. There's multiple on that one so that you can keep track of it. Probably the last one is having someone that kind of, you know, early on in this podcast, you talked about who are those mentors or people that you talk to. It's having someone that you can do that with. And, you know, I've been pretty fortunate enough. So there's 28 high schools in Hillsborough County. So there's 28 of us that we can reach out to and talk to. And we've got Lannis as the county athletic director. Even some of the athletic directors that have moved on to other roles. You know, I mentioned Donnie Peak earlier. You know, I can still pick up the phone and talk to him, and he'll help me answer questions and listen and bounce ideas off them. You know, so it's having somebody that has been in it a little bit that can listen to what you're asking and see, right? Somebody's been through it, and you know, we always say don't recreate the wheel. It's try and do what other people are doing, and you may have to modify a little bit, but you know, you can't just keep all this to yourself and try and figure it out. There's people who've done it a long time and have had some success, and it's trying to figure out a combination of those that's going to help you be successful.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned listening. I just look at myself. It took me way too long to find that tool, but it was so helpful once I was able to start using it. And again, the mentoring, the networking, Donnie Peak. Donnie's great. Donnie was my partner at the national NIAAA cornhole tournament. You know, we didn't win, but you know, we had a good time.
You can blame the loss on Donnie.
Well, Tim, again, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Continued success this season and this year at Plant City High School.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, absolutely. To our listeners, thanks as always for tuning in. Come back again next time for another edition of the Educational AD. Thanks again for listening to the podcast. Remember, these episodes are also available on the Educational AD FIAAA YouTube site. Thanks again for listening.